My name is Daniel, and for the longest time, my life was simple. Predictable. Safe. I worked a regular 9-to-5 job at a marketing firm downtown. Nothing glamorous. Just spreadsheets, conference calls, and the occasional office birthday cake. I'd come home around 6:30 most evenings, sometimes stopping at the corner store for whatever looked easy to microwave. Then I'd settle into my apartment, scroll through social media for an hour or two, maybe watch a show I'd seen 3 times already, and eventually fall asleep with my laptop still open on my chest. My apartment complex wasn't anything special. 4 stories, beige walls, generic landscaping that someone watered once a week. But it was quiet. Predictable. The kind of place where nothing ever really happened. That was exactly how I liked it. I wasn't close with my neighbors. The woman in 3B sometimes smiled at me in the laundry room. The guy next door played his music too loud on weekends, but never loud enough to complain about. A nod here. A quick, hey, there. That was the extent of it. Everyone seemed content to stay in their own little worlds, separated by thin walls and thinner conversations. And so was I. I liked the anonymity. I liked being no one to anyone. That all changed the day he moved in across the hall. I didn't notice him at first. Not until I heard boxes sliding across the hallway early on a Saturday morning. It was that scraping sound, cardboard against cheap carpet, that dragged me out of bed earlier than I wanted. I figured I'd just ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. I needed to toss out some trash anyway. When I stepped into the hallway, there he was. Tall. Maybe 6'2" or 6'3". Thin in a way that looked unnatural, like he hadn't eaten properly in weeks. He wore a dark hoodie, but pulled up, even though it was already 75 degrees outside and the air conditioning in the building barely worked. His jeans were dark too, almost black, and his sneakers looked brand new but somehow dusty. But it was his face that stopped me cold. Pale. Not just pale, drained. Like someone who hadn't seen sunlight in years. His eyes were dark, sunken, staring directly at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. He didn't blink. He didn't smile. He just stared. As if he was studying every detail of my face, committing it to memory. I forced out a quick, hey, trying to sound casual, neighborly. Nothing. He just kept staring. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 seconds, he nodded. Slowly. Too slowly. Too stiff. Too deliberate. Almost mechanical, like his neck was on a hinge. Then he turned back to his boxes without a word. I hurried to the trash chute and back into my apartment, telling myself I was overthinking it. New neighbors were always awkward. Maybe he was shy. Maybe he was tired from the move. Maybe I just caught him at a weird moment. But something about that stare stayed with me. For the first week, I barely saw him. I'd hear footsteps sometimes. Soft. Slow. Pacing back and forth in his apartment late at night. But I never ran into him in the hallway. Never saw him coming or going. It was almost like he wasn't there at all. Then I started noticing him more. Every time I came home from work, he was there. Not doing anything. Not carrying groceries or checking his mail. Just standing. Always in the same spot, just outside his door, hands in his hoodie pockets, staring at nothing. Or staring at everything. I couldn't tell which. He never leaned against the wall. Never paced. Never looked at his phone. Just stood there. Silent. Still. Watching. At first, I thought maybe he was waiting for someone. A friend. A delivery. But days passed, and no one ever came. He'd just stand there for 20, 30 minutes at a time, then disappear back into his apartment without a sound. The third time it happened, I made the mistake of making eye contact. He didn't look away. He didn't nod this time either. He just tilted his head slightly, like a dog hearing a strange noise, and kept staring. I felt my stomach twist. I mumbled something like, "How's it going?" and rushed inside, locking the door behind me. I started taking the stairs instead of the elevator, hoping I could avoid him. But somehow, he always knew when I was home. I'd hear his door creak open just seconds after mine closed. I'd hear those slow, deliberate footsteps in the hallway. And if I checked the peephole, he'd be standing out there. Just standing. Sometimes I thought maybe he wasn't even human. The way he moved, or didn't move, felt unnatural. Wrong. Like someone trying to imitate what a normal person would do but getting it just slightly off. Then came the messages. It started on a Tuesday night. I was lying in bed, mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, when a notification popped up. A message request. From a blank account. No profile picture. No posts. No followers. No following. Just a generic username, a random string of letters and numbers. The message read, "You shouldn't go outside so late. It's dangerous." I stared at my screen, my pulse quickening. I'd gone out for a walk around 11 that night. I did that sometimes when I couldn't sleep. Just a quick loop around the block. I hadn't seen anyone. Hadn't heard anyone. But apparently, someone had seen me. I blocked the account immediately. The next day, another request came in. Different username. Same blank profile. "You look tired today." I felt a chill run down my spine. I'd barely slept the night before. I knew I looked like hell. But how did he know? I blocked that one too. But they kept coming. One after another. Each one from a different blank account. Each one slightly more invasive than the last. "Why do you always come home at 6:40? That shirt looks good on you. You didn't eat much for dinner tonight. You forgot to lock your door last Tuesday." That last one made my blood run cold. I checked my door immediately. It was locked. But had I really forgotten last week? I couldn't remember. I thought I always locked it. But now I wasn't sure. I stopped responding. Stopped even opening the messages. But they kept appearing. Every day. Sometimes multiple times a day. "You sleep on your side. You should close your curtains. I can hear you breathing through the walls." I started keeping my curtains drawn. I checked my locks obsessively. I stopped going out at night. But the messages didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. "Why are you ignoring me? I'm just trying to be friendly. Don't you want a friend, Daniel?" That was the first time he'd used my name. Then, one evening, I found something wedged under my apartment door. I almost missed it. Just a small, white corner sticking out from beneath the frame. I bent down and pulled it free. A Polaroid. My hand started shaking before I even flipped it over. It was me. Sleeping. In my own bed. My face turned to the side, mouth slightly open, completely unaware. The angle was close. Maybe 2 feet from my face. Close enough to see the individual hairs on my head. Close enough to hear me breathing. Someone had been inside my apartment. Someone had been standing next to my bed, in the dark, long enough to pull out a camera, frame the shot, and take the photo. I felt sick. My legs went weak. I stumbled backward into my apartment and slammed the door shut, flipping every lock, sliding the chain into place. I tore through the apartment like a madman. Checked every closet. Every corner. Under the bed. Behind the shower curtain. In the kitchen cabinets. I checked the windows. All locked. I checked the door. No signs of forced entry. I checked for hidden cameras. Nothing. Nothing seemed missing. Nothing seemed disturbed. Except me. I was completely disturbed. I couldn't breathe properly. My chest felt tight. My thoughts were racing. How did he get in? When did he get in? How long had he been standing there? Had this happened more than once? I stared at the photo for what felt like hours. Then I noticed something in the background. My alarm clock. The time was visible, 3:47 a.m. 3 nights ago. I'd been asleep. Completely vulnerable. And he'd been right there. I called the police that night. Told them everything. The messages. The photo. The neighbor. They took a report. Said they'd look into it. They asked if I had proof of forced entry. I didn't. They asked if anything was stolen. It wasn't. They told me to stay vigilant and left. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. I sat in my living room with the lights on, a kitchen knife on the coffee table, watching the door. The nights became unbearable. Every sound made me sit upright. Every creak in the hallway. Every footstep above me. Every gust of wind against the window. My body was in constant fight or flight mode. I couldn't eat. Couldn't focus at work. Couldn't think about anything except him. I started hearing things. Or maybe I wasn't imagining them. Soft scratching sounds near my door. The faint jingle of keys. Breathing. I swear I could hear breathing through the walls, slow and rhythmic, like someone was standing on the other side, just listening. I bought a security camera. One of those cheap ones you stick on the door. It recorded movement and sent alerts to my phone. It made me feel slightly safer. Slightly. But then, around 2 in the morning on a Thursday, I woke to a sound. Tap, tap, tap. Soft. Deliberate. Rhythmic. At first, I thought it was coming from the apartment above me. Maybe someone dropping something. But then it got louder. More focused. More intentional. It was coming from my front door. I sat up slowly, my heart already pounding. The tapping continued. Tap, tap, tap. Slow. Patient. Like whoever it was wanted me to hear every single touch. Wanted me to know they were there. I grabbed my phone, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped it. The tapping didn't stop. Tap, tap, tap. I forced myself out of bed. Every step toward the door felt like walking through water. My legs were heavy. My chest was tight. My pulse was roaring in my ears. The tapping slowed. Tap, tap, tap. I reached the door and pressed my eye to the peephole. Darkness. Nothing but darkness. At first, I thought maybe the hallway light had gone out. But then I realized, it wasn't the hallway. Something was covering the peephole. Something. Or someone. My breath caught in my throat. I stepped back, slowly, carefully, trying not to make a sound. Then I remembered the camera. I grabbed my phone and opened the app. My stomach dropped. He was standing right in front of my door. Face inches from it. I pressed against the peephole. His mouth was hanging open slightly, like he was breathing through it, fog forming on the lens with each exhale. His head tilted slowly, almost robotically, listening. Waiting. Then he whispered. Barely audible. Soft. Almost tender. Why did you lock it tonight? My entire body went cold. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. The doorknob rattled. Hard. Violent. Like he was trying to rip it off. Then scratching. Fingernails dragging down the wood. Then pounding. Full fists. Over and over and over. The sound was deafening. Desperate. Frantic. I backed away, stumbling over my own feet, my phone clutched to my chest. I wanted to scream but nothing came out. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared at the door, waiting for it to burst open. Minutes passed. 5. 10. 15. Nothing. I checked the camera again. The hallway was empty. I called the police. Again. Told them what happened. Showed them the footage. They said they'd send someone. When they arrived, he was gone. Not just gone from the hallway. His apartment was completely empty. No furniture. No boxes. No clothes. No signs anyone had ever lived there. The landlord said he paid cash for the first month and never filled out any paperwork. No name. No contact information. Nothing. He'd vanished. The police said there wasn't much they could do without a suspect. They told me to change my locks. To stay alert. To call if anything else happened. 2 days later, someone else moved in across the hall. A young couple with a dog. Normal people. I moved out a week after that. Broke my lease. Didn't care about the penalty. I couldn't stay there. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't breathe. Every shadow looked like him. Every sound was him coming back. That was 6 months ago. I live in a different part of the city now. Different building. Different neighborhood. I changed my phone number. Deleted all my social media. Started over. But sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and I'm lying in bed, I still hear it. Tap, tap, tap. And deep down, in a place I don't like to acknowledge, I know the nightmare isn't over. Someone like him doesn't just disappear. People like that don't move on. They watch. They wait. They plan. And I have a feeling, a terrible, gnawing feeling that keeps me awake at night, that he's not done with me yet. Because 3 days ago, I found something on my car windshield. Another Polaroid. This time, it was my new apartment. From the outside. At night. And written on the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize. Welcome home, Daniel. I stood there in the parking lot, frozen, the photo trembling in my hands. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe someone found an old photo. Maybe I was losing my mind. But I knew better. I looked up at my apartment building, scanning the windows, the shadows, the spaces between parked cars. Everything looked normal. Too normal. That's when I noticed it. My apartment window. 3rd floor. The curtains were open. I never leave my curtains open. Never. Not since everything that happened. My heart started pounding. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app, zooming in on my window. And there, barely visible in the darkness of my living room, was a silhouette. Someone was inside. Standing perfectly still. Watching me from my own apartment. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. We stared at each other across the parking lot, separated by distance but connected by something far more terrifying. Then, slowly, deliberately, the figure raised one hand. And waved. My phone slipped from my grip, clattering onto the pavement. When I looked back up, the silhouette was gone. I didn't go back inside that night. I couldn't. I drove to a motel on the other side of town and sat in the parking lot until sunrise, staring at my phone, waiting for another message. It came at 6:47 a.m. A text from an unknown number. No words. Just a video file. My hands shook as I pressed play. The video was dark, grainy, shot from inside somewhere. It took me a moment to recognize it. My new apartment. My bedroom. The camera was positioned in the corner, angled down at my bed. The timestamp showed last night. 2:34 a.m. And there I was. Sleeping. Completely unaware. The video was only 10 seconds long, but in those 10 seconds, something moved in the frame. A shadow. Emerging from my closet. Slowly. Silently. It stood at the foot of my bed for the remaining seconds, just watching me sleep. Then the video cut to black. 3 words appeared on the screen in white text. See you soon. I'm telling you this now because I don't know what else to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to stop this. Every apartment I move to, he finds me. Every precaution I take, he's already 10 steps ahead. The police can't help. My friends think I'm paranoid. My family thinks I need therapy. But I know what I saw. I know what's happening. And as I sit here now, in this motel room with every lock engaged and a chair wedged under the door, I can't shake the feeling that it doesn't matter. He's been inside before. He'll get inside again. The question isn't if he'll find me. The question is, what does he want when he finally stops watching and starts acting? I just heard something. A soft tapping. Coming from the bathroom. Tap, tap, tap. But I'm on the 2nd floor. There's no window in there. The tapping is getting louder. I need to go check. I need to know. God help me. I need to see his face.